Hello and welcome to All for Wins Football and Lower League Lingo, episode 24. Let's not Lower League linger, let's just get straight on with it. We'll be back the other side of this. Hello, bonjour, arrivederci, gracias, all of those lovely different sayings that all mean different things. And welcome to you all, Gaza and John. Very quick one for you both. How are you doing?
It's half term, so absolutely delightful. Thank you, Barry.
It's been a wonderful day. And John, you've been let loose with the voice notes this week. How are you feeling?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Loads of games to get into, and well done for going 24 weeks without saying lower league lingo before. That's good. I like it. You should have said it sooner.
Listen, you've got to stage these things out, haven't you? So that's exactly what we've tried to do. Right, listen, let's not muck about. There's plenty to get through today. So we're going to get straight into it. And we are going in a slightly funky order today, we have to be honest. But we do still start, as usual, with the North going down towards the bottom is the usual order. So we're going to be kicking off with the Northern Premier. Not a huge number of changes, Gareth, in terms of league positions, but certainly a lot of matches being played. Forest and Wolves both sort of strengthening their hands. Talk to us a little bit about how the Northern Premier has gone for now, and we'll do the County Cup in just a second.
Yeah, I feel like it can go down almost as a fortnight of missed opportunity. I think Burnley had two games in hand, kind of coming into this, so obviously have played one of them. They beat Liverpool Feds midweek, fantastic, kind of keeping that pressure up. But with Forest and Wolves drawing at the weekend, Burnley had an opportunity to kind of take the title into their own hands. Or at least kind of look to see some kind of control. They lost 3-2 to Stoke. Now, looking at that's a close game. They're level on points now in the table. But if Burnley had won that game, they would now be on 40 points with a game in hand, and the league title would be in their hands. Now they can still win their other game in hand and go to within 2 points of Forest, which is still a good position to be in, and all of that that comes with that. But they could have been a case of win every game and you're the champions. Now I'm not too sure what Burnley's remaining fixtures are, but I will be by the time I finish talking. So I'll try and just kind of nip down a little bit as well. We've seen John will talk more about kind of those teams around the bottom, but none of them really able to pick up any points. And yeah, I think as it goes, Forest will be pleased to have come away from the Wolves game, having not lost any ground to anybody. And I think they will, at full time, have thought this could be a real opportunity missed. Now, Burnley do have Forest to play still. Their next two games are Rugby Borough and Nottingham Forest to start March. So that is a tricky start to March, and they have Wolves to play as well. So I think it's safe that if Burnley win all their games, they will still be champions. But they could have been a bit closer. There could have been a little bit of wiggle room there, but not to be. What I will say though is whoever comes out on top of this table come April will absolutely deserve a spot in the championship. The 3-4 teams now with Stoke. I suspect that 5 point gap for Stoke is going to be a little bit difficult to swing, but the 3 points between Forest and Wolves that can move around. If Burnley win that game in hand and go to within 2 points of Forest, that can swing. Well, it can swing when they play each other, really. So any of those three teams that can win the league, really, I think will be absolutely good value for it. We'll touch on the county cups later, but it's not looking great for Halifax down the bottom. This week it was announced, I think this morning actually, that Rob Mitchell, the Halifax manager, who has been with them since 2013, took over in Tier 7 and has taken them right from Tier 7 right the way up to Tier 3. When Rob took over back in 2013, I was still either at sixth form or just about to start university, between the two. So it's been a long old time. John was probably in his early 30s or something, I don't know. But it's been a long time, and they've announced that now. He's got till the end of the season to try and pull something out of a hat from somewhere and keep them up. I think it's going to be a tough ask, but it's also going to be a tough ask to replace him because he's been there an awfully long time. He's done a fantastic job. Was I think worth noting was Brighouse Town actually when he was there to start with, then became Halifax with all the turmoil through that, steered the ship through that, steered the ship through the pandemic, and came out of the other side. And I think when you don't win a game all season, I think these questions start to be asked. But the history there is huge, and definitely a gap to plug in the club. But I'll let John maybe talk more about some of those Midlands sub teams.
Yeah, well, just on that, I think you soon know how much respect that Rob Mitchell's got when you see all the comments and the people who are commenting on his Twitter page and who are quite retweeted it. There's so many managers and players who've never even played for him but played against him, and they've all wished him well. So I just echo what you said there, Gareth, in regards to him and what he's done there. I will just touch on a few scores that you didn't mention. So there was 5 midweek games last week, so really entertaining. There was one game that was postponed, which was Hull versus Halifax. But Stourbridge lost in their battle against relegation. Battle against Albion to avoid relegation, losing 3-1. Derby lost away to Stoke 4-1. And you mentioned Forest winning rugby. That was the midweek games. And then throughout the weekend, there were still 3 games being played. You mentioned Burnley losing to Stoke, but Forest drawing 1-1 to Wolves was quite an interesting one, to be honest. I'm in a bit of a group chat with Wolves and Forest fans, and I don't know if they would have both took a draw at the start of the game, but it was quite a to and fro. And it was Melissa Johnson after 20 minutes, who good play from Olding and Domingo, who assisted that opening goal for Forest. But then Charlotte Greengrass, one of the league's best goal scorers, let alone Wolves, getting the equaliser within 46 minutes. I think Macca was saying after the game, he was saying something along the lines of he just wanted a reaction. Going in at half time, 1-0 down. He said you've got 45 minutes to turn it around. If you don't get a point, you're out of the title race. Within a minute, Charlotte Greengrass scored. Carly, the Forest manager, was a little bit the opposite, saying look at the bigger picture more than that, just one game, saying that they've achieved 7 points out of the last 9. So she kind of took a bit more of a wider span at it. But as you said, Gareth, really battle at the top there. And it is nice to see Stoke creep up the table, because they got off to a bit of a rocky start. And we said this for 24 weeks now, that they had like 3 real tough games at the start of the season. So there was never up there. But they got them tough games out the way, built a bit of momentum, and now they're actually in the talk in regards to the title race as well.
Yeah, 3 wins on the trot there for Stoke has been quite something since the last time we looked at this league. And I think the testament to the clubs above them is the fact that they've managed to win 3 games on the trot and still not move a place. It's just about says how strong Forest, Wolves and Burnley have been over the early parts of the season. So, lads, I'm going to ask you to talk to me about 2 county cups. Obviously, Gazza, you're going to look at the West Riding County Cup, and we'll get John to take a look at the Birmingham County Cup, because you can tell by his accent he's quite local to that. We've got some big games coming up. Halifax will be playing at Bradford City. Halifax, though, are the holders, Gareth, in this competition, but Bradford City are Tier 5 opposition, so they haven't quite made it to the final yet. But tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm really pleased you gave us the info about the Halifax manager, Rob, because that was something I was going to point you towards. But all of that history really does show. And again, they won the County Cup last year. Is there a chance they could win it this year?
Yeah, absolutely. They a good result of the weekend, beating Oxford United 4-2. Bradford City, we touched on them when we kind of have spoken about um, Tier 5 and the Northeast. So yeah, I think if you look at that, Halifax, despite their woes this season, kind of within the league, that they've got a lot of quality in the squad still. Like John has mentioned in previous weeks, they've been bringing players in, and yeah, I think you never want to count any chickens before they hatch or anything, but they've absolutely got the quality to go against Bradford City and beat them in the semi-final. So, yeah, I think absolutely Halifax. I think you would consider them favourites in that county cup, and I think that I think it would be a surprise if they didn't. But you never know. When momentum is so important, and picking up that 4-2 win at the weekend, can see what happens when they come up into their future league games. But if the league games go the way they have been going all season, which looking at league table, one draw is all they've got to show for it, then maybe Bradford, if they turn up on the day and go all guns blazing and just without fear just go for it. I mean, Bradford have nothing to lose. They're not. I don't think they're expected to win the game. So if they just go for it, we could potentially see an upset. But yeah, if you were to ask me where my money is with the West Riding FA Cup, it would be with Halifax. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Like I say, still got, I think, another round or two they need to go through after that. But yeah, that'd be quite big. And John, for you, that there's a final to be had in the Birmingham County Cup. It's the mighty Rugby Borough, 5th place in the Northern Premier, against the mighty West Bromwich Albion, 7th place in the Northern Premier. So a very big game for this. West Brom have never won the County Cup, the Birmingham County Cup. It's not happened from what I can see. Rugby Borough were the champions last season, 23-24. But, of course, as we know, Rugby Borough were also once known as Coventry United and had won it 6 times previously before that. So a fair bit of history in the competition for rugby. What do you reckon here? Is this going to be Rugby Borough's second as rugby and 8th all in all, or are West Brom going to take their maiden County Cup?
I think you'd have to say that rugby's a favourite, but I mean the story so far for these clubs. First of all, there's no academy side that's got to the final. So we did have Aston Villa Academy and Birmingham Academy. Birmingham got knocked out in the quarter-final against Stourbridge. Obviously, Aston Villa got knocked out to West Brom in the semi-final. So I think that's an interesting point to make there. And no Wolves in the final, so it's usually whoever wins Wolves in the final would tend to win this cup. So without Wolves being there, it has definitely opened it up. It was Albion that beat Wolves, so Albion have done well in the cups this season. They have, shows a different side to them, and the goal that Alan Miller scored against Aston Villa is on social media. You can see it, and we saw Albion play Manchester United, didn't we, as well in the cup, one of the cups, and for 78 minutes they've done really well. It was only 1-0 down, so Albion have got that side to them, where they can pull something out the bag in one match. Although I do think that rugby will have too much for them. They won 4-1 on the weekend. Ebony Wiseman scored 2. Moncaster and Morris scored the other 2. Demi Walker for Stourbridge scored at the very end. For me, it's rugby's to lose. They are the stronger team. But yeah, you just never know in a final. It could go either way.
Certainly could go absolutely either way. I think that one looks like a fascinating game, to be fair, and I think we should all look forward to seeing what happens on that one. So we are going to, with a bit of luck. No, not today. We're not. Oh, it was used to be working so well. There we go. Lovely. Division 1 North. There we are. Goodness me. We're worried there. That wasn't going to change. So here we are, Division 1 North. So we're playing it slightly different today. We're playing a long game. We are hoping, fingers crossed, that there is a reason why we are doing this. Part of that reason is that Gareth will have to leave very shortly because he's got somewhere else to be. So talk to us, Gaza, about Division 1 North. Lots going on there. So a quick roundup on that, and then you can take us. Well, then we'll go into the county cups, but yeah, quick roundup.
Again, I said it before, we'll say it again. This is one of my absolute favourite leagues at the moment to follow as a neutral. Speaking of missed opportunities, it's a theme. Middlesbrough drawing 1-1 with Fylde. Fylde were 1-0 up at half time. Middlesbrough came back in the second half and took a point. That gives Cheadle the titles in their hand. Cheadle currently, with 6 games to go, have the title in their own hands. And if they win this, it's back-to-back promotions. They've won Tier 4 after winning Tier 5 the year before. John's smiling because there's another team that we talk about a lot that did the same. But that's a huge achievement. On the flip side, Fylde could be looking at swapping places with them over the course of 2 years. But that's a huge point for Fylde as well in the grand scheme of things. They are now 2 points off the top. They haven't won for a very long time, but like I've said before, momentum is important. They have games coming up against Norton and Stockton Ancients at the weekend. That's huge. They have Doncaster Rovers Bells to play in a not too distant future. That game is massive. They are 2 absolutely enormous games for Fylde. You imagine if they get 4 points from them, then that puts them in a really good position. If they get none, or 1 or 2, that's tricky for them. I think we'll know better. Norton and Stockton play midweek this week against Durham. So if Norton can win that pulls them away, and then I think that 4-point gap between Fylde and York becomes tricky. But yeah, I mean, what a relegation scrap we've got going here. You imagine Barnsley with that 5-point gap to Doncaster Rovers Bells and the game in hand on them. They're probably safe now, so they're probably safe. Promotion, staying up, which means the 2 promoted sides for the first time in a while will stay up. That's positive. But it's a really interesting title battle from Stockport County down. There's 5 teams there, and I think you could probably say that any of them two, 1 or 2 positive results either way, and they could be dropping out of that trapdoor. And looking at the league title, it not going to take a huge amount to swing that. If Leeds win their game in hand, they are 4 points off. You imagine any of them 4 really, again, a little bit of form, some unavailability issues potentially, as we kind of get towards the business end of the season. One poor result can swing everything. So I think you'd be a brave soul to pick who's going to go up. I think you'd be a brave soul to pick who's going to go down as well. And before you ask me, Barry, I can see you kind of leaning into the camera there. No, I'm not going to call it just yet.
It wasn't what I was going to ask
but-
you, but I was going to say we've got hands in the air, our first comment as we've been going live, and it's a brilliant segue. So that's why I was leading in. So I was ready to go. Julian Barker has come. Sorry, John, just hiding there. Has popped in. Talk about the West Riding Cup, which was going to be my next question for you. He says Halifax and Leeds are to meet in the final if they're kept apart. Leeds have several former Halifax players and are his bet to win the trophy. You were obviously just talking about Halifax doing well. They are yet to play. They've still got to play against either Altofts or Leeds Hyde Park. So they're waiting for that game to take place. If they win that, obviously they go into the semi-finals. If they beat either of those teams, sorry, got myself a bit lost there for a second. And then they would be hopefully kept apart in order to take on Halifax there. But Leeds, again, a side that you would potentially expect to go deep in this competition?
Yeah, I think so. I think, my knowledge of specific counties in Yorkshire is not great. I didn't realise Leeds were in West Riding. But yeah, I think if you look at it on paper, they are 2 of the stronger sides in the competition. Leeds, although being the tier below at the moment, are in better form than Halifax. They're pushing towards the top end of the title, whereas Halifax are scrapping. I think the kind of risk with those kinds of games is one side underestimates another, it could be easy for Leeds to go into that game and go, Halifax, they've not had a great season. By the time the final comes around, Halifax's relegation could be confirmed, and you sort of think we just need to go through the motions and this is job done. I've played in a cup in a cup final where in the league I think we'd won 14-0, something along those lines, and then it took a late equaliser in the final, and then a penalty shootout win for us to take it home. So when you get to cup finals, mad things can happen, and yeah, I think it'll be anything can happen on the day. But yeah, those two are definitely the strongest of the two games in the competition. Some points just on the County Cup from the Division 1 North. Stockport County having a difficult game in Cheshire as they came through a game against Tranmere, I believe. Just check. Chester, a 2-1 win away against Chester. So they're a tier 6 side, kind of running Stockport close, which I think says a lot about how County Cup games can go. But then there was quite a lot of regular kind of County Cup type action. York City beating Northallerton 20-0. Huddersfield and Leeds both getting 9-0 wins. Norton and Barnsley both with 6-0 wins. So, there's some good results there. Stockport coming through that game against Chester sounded like a good game, but then there is some usual County Cup discussions. But it's much later in the competition, so those sides that got beaten absolutely deserve to be there. And sometimes this is how things play out. These things just happen, and that's part and parcel of the county cups. But yeah, a super interesting league, and one that every week things change. I think there's 2 sets of hours there, whereas in the Premier Division there was just the one. So yeah, super interesting, and I'm sure by the time we talk about it next, there'll be even more changes and even more things that have happened and spanners thrown in the works, etc., etc.
Sure. The last question before we let you slide off. The Durham County Cup final has been sorted. It's Norton and Stockton Ancients against Chester Street Town. Who do you think is going to win that?
Oh, that's so tricky. Northern Stockton Ancients in the relegation scrap now, as we can see from there. Chester Street in the title race for Tier 5. I'm going to go out on a whim, and I'm going to say that Chester Street win it.
All right. Well, there you go. That is Gaza. We're going to say goodbye to Gaza. She's got to go literally straight off of this and on somewhere else. So see you later, Gareth. Thanks for
being a pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen.
But the good news is that even though we are going to lose Gareth, and there he goes, we're not going to stay as 2. Look at this. We're going to be introducing someone. I've been waiting for this for some time. He's finally managed to get here. Get ready, everybody. Drum roll. It is Stuart Barker from Sin 71. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm tapping in. I don't know whether we are more Brett Littman Hart and Owen Hart, or more the Bushwhackers, to be honest. Probably more the latter, to be honest. But I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, and it's great to see you guys.
Brilliant. No, good to have you here. And we will get into some bits and pieces with you in just a moment. But we are going to look very quickly with John once again on the Division 1 Midlands. So you told us a bit about this already, John, in terms of backstage. There's not a huge amount that's happened in the league. There's been a couple of games though, so do feel free to, just like Gareth did, run us through the Division 1 Midlands and then whatever you've researched and found out about your county cups.
Yeah, so all the games were actually played midweek, so there was no league games over the weekend because it was county cups. So all the games were played on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, 11th, 12th and 13th. I think that's right, or something like that. 11th, 12th and 13th of February. But what I love about the midweek games is, yes, they're derbies, but these particular games, they're all battles within the league. So you got like 6th against 7th, you got 10th versus 11th, you've got Everything just really tight between them. So I was going to run off a few scores and a couple of scorers here and there. Notts County 3, Barnsley Women 3, a 99th minute equaliser there, which kept 1 point between the two teams. The following day, Worcester 0, Solihull Moors 0. It sounds like a bit of a boring game, and if you're from out the area, you might not know how important that game is, but that was 10th against 11th, 3 points between them. And Solihull Moors, obviously a big name club. They need to find a win from somewhere to overtake Worcester, and there's still plenty of games for that to happen, but it's going to be tough. So that's obviously a tight game. And then you got the Lincoln derby. So Lincoln United got quite a few players there and manager that used to play for Lincoln City. Lincoln United only won 1-0, and I say only. Lincoln City, bottom of the league, haven't got any points yet. So that's obviously only 1-0. I thought that was a bit of an interesting one. But then there was a bit of a change. Northampton towards top of the league won Sutton Coldfield 6-0, and that's a massive one. So that took Northampton back to the top of the league. And Sutton Coldfield are now 9th. So massive game for them. Jade Bell with a hat-trick, Amber Pearson with a goal, and Lisa Milliken with 2 goals. So great result there for Northampton to put the pressure on the rest of the teams. And Loughborough 1, Peterborough 1. Again, top of the table kind of clash there. Hayley James was the last minute goal for Peterborough. So that put like a slightly small dent into Loughborough's hopes, but of course Loughborough have got 2 games in hand. And just a bit of a watch out. We always like to say this because this league is so tight. I've always got to tell you what the next week's games are, because it's Loughborough against Northampton. So Northampton top of the league. If Loughborough win their games in hand, they'll go top of the league, and they're against each other on the 23rd of March. So yeah, a very exciting league. I know how much Gareth loves his Tier 4 North just as much as I love my Tier 4 Midlands. So some great goals there. A bit like missed opportunities, as Gareth said earlier in the show. County Cup wise. Yeah, go on, mate. Go on.
I was going to say, before we go too far, I think we need to give a little bit of credit to Leafield Athletic, who at this point last year were 12th in the division with 8 points, and now sit second with 39 points. So what a fantastic turnaround! And full credit to Tash and everyone at the club, and for everyone at Talking Woso for pointing out that really interesting stat. And it's probably the biggest turnaround that they've probably seen in the National League since its inception. If I'm wrong, then I'd love to hear it, because it'd be an interesting story.
We've mentioned Leafield a number of times on the show, Barry, because I get laughed at because I speak about them so much, but they've done an absolutely fantastic job. And it just shows, if you bring in a Tier 3 quality manager who's been at Stoke, Albion and Stourbridge when they were in Tier 3, if you bring that kind of manager into a Tier 4 side, that attracts Tier 3 players into Tier 4, and it just shows what you can do on little money as well, I would assume. So yeah, fantastic to hear Leafield doing well.
Well, I just want to ask you very quickly about Lincoln City as well, because when we left you the last time we looked at this league, they were just about to play Solihull Moors. They did, and they drew. They got their first point on the board, so yay Lincoln on that one. But they then took on Lincoln United. Lincoln United had quite a good moment. They won their last 2 games, which has pulled them well out of danger. And one of those obviously was against Lincoln City. Just very quickly, we've titled the show as potential first relegations incoming. I don't think that Lincoln are the worst in terms of potentially being relegated anytime soon, but with just 5 games to go, it's not looking brilliant for them, is it?
No, because when you look at the goal average, you just got to think to yourself, they're averaging, well, I don't know, as a guess, something like 5, 6, 7 goals a game conceded. You just don't know where they're actually going to pick up a result from, do you? And even if they do, they've got to pick up 2 or 3 results. So yeah, it's a tough ask, absolutely. And maybe they'll be looking at their County Cup to try and get a bit of success there. They did win in the County Cup, as did Lincoln United, Loughborough Lightning and Northampton Town on the weekends. But yeah, it's a very tough ask for Lincoln City now. However, Moors and Worcester aren't doing great. They're just doing slightly better than Lincoln City.
Brilliant. Feel free to go into your County Cup info now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't got into too much detail. Obviously, the 2 Lincoln teams are doing doing well. You'd like to think that those will go head to head at some point. Loughborough Lightning smashing it, and we talk about a goal average in county cups, don't we? And Northampton and Loughborough kind of just typifies that, even at the later stages. I think Loughborough would like to think that they would get promotion and potentially promotion and a cup as well. But I'm sure Northampton wants to kind of put a bit of a slight twist on that. So yeah, it's all open. Obviously, all the Birmingham County Cup ones have been. I've said already, because that was tier 3. So those were tier 4 County Cup games there.
Super duper. Well done, John. And that rounds up the Division 1 Midlands quite nicely, which means we can start going to places which I understand a lot more as we start moving back down, not quite past Watford Gap, but still into the southern parts of the region. So we're going to take a look very quickly at the Southern Premier. As you can see, there's been quite a few ups and downs, and it's very interesting seeing what is happening in this league at the moment. Ipswich obviously beating Exeter City this weekend. It's strange. These top 4 just keep chopping and changing at the moment. A good win there for Ipswich. Sophie Peskett and Ella Rutherford scoring, cancelling out and then beating Sophie Gillies' goal for Exeter. So Exeter just dropping a little bit there with that loss. Ipswich winning 2 and drawing 1 since we last looked at them. And that is why they are back at the top of the table. And again, with that 2-game buffer against the likes of Hashtag and, of course, commanding goal difference, it really does look as if Ipswich will take this title, but you just never know. Hashtag just dropping down. They've had a good season as well for them. Oxford United jumping up with a couple of wins as well. So that top 4 is looking really exciting. Maybe Exeter and Oxford just a little bit too much to do, but you never quite know. And looking down at the bottom, Billericay are not having the best of times. Plymouth Argyle lost to Oxford United. Despite that, they also managed to win a previous game, which was very helpful for them against AFC Wimbledon. And so they have made it out of the relegation zone. Billericay, who have just had a torrid time in this division, not really getting where they would need to be. And we're talking about relegation. MK Dons at the moment, since their midweek loss to Oxford United again, 3-0, just sitting there with 6 games to go, 18 possible points. Plymouth are in a position where if they could get 4 more points, that would probably be enough. If we're being brutally honest, that is probably that for MK Dons, who've had a really, really tricky season with a lot of players leaving. Stu, I'll hand over to you for the league. Is there anything that you would particularly bring up with regards to teams that you know from the Southern Premier and things that you're seeing? I'd much rather hear from you. People have heard me talk about the Southern Premier for the last 20-odd shows. So the floor is yours, Sunshine. Tell us what you know.
Thank you. I would say that the league's pretty much done. I would put £5 to a charity of your choice, Barry, that the league will finish near one exactly the same, with maybe 2 teams shifting round. I think the competition is really for between 3rd and 5th, and maybe between Lewis and Wimbledon. But I think Wimbledon will have the more superior firepower going forward to pip Lewis. So I think really it's just a case of between Oxford, Exeter and Watford who finishes 3rd, 4th and 5th. Billericay I just don't see it happening. I think Plymouth have got enough quality just to kind of pip it, but Paul Milton, Kings Dons, it's a very sad story that we could probably dedicate a whole show to. I've got a lot of sort of links within that club, and it's just been a mess, and sadly the fans and the players are paying for the mismanagement of the club. And I'm not referring to sort of the coaching staff. I'm talking those in suits. But yeah, that may be an episode that we can kind of cover in a little bit more depth. But I think the Southern Premier is kind of nearly settled, to be honest. And I think Ipswich would be worthy and deserved winners. they've been there or thereabouts now for a number of years. A very good setup, another great FA Cup run, and it'd be great to see them in the Championship.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the goal difference there is just absolutely insane. So incredibly good for them. In terms of County Cup action, I can confirm for you that the Essex County Cup final hashtag have made it there once again, and they will be facing Billericay once again. This is I know, gasp, everybody, hold on, it's such a shock. But again, with Billericay doing as they have been this season, you do worry just a little bit. They got past Chelmsford, a tier 6 side, on penalties, which was a bit tricky. If you get the chance, get on Billericay's Twitter, because they show you Alicia Mulvaney's goal for 1-1, and it's 22 yards out, beautiful left footer into the top corner. It really is nice. Chelmsford City had to clear a ball off the line in the last minute of extra time as well, otherwise it would have not gone to penalties, but it did, and Billericay just made it through 3-2 on penalties. They've won it twice. 22-23 was the last time that Billericay won it. They've been the runners up 4 times. They'll be facing, as we say, hashtag, who won it 5 times in 7 years as C&K Basildon. It's a repeat of last year's final. Hashtag won that 7-2. If you're looking for any omens, they've just beaten Barking 12-1. That's an 11 goal difference for those of you that need your quick maths. And when they won the semi-final last year, they won it 11-0 against Chelmsford City. So who knows? Maybe it's all in there. Quick rundown of your scorers. There was 4 for Eloise King, 2 for Francesca Finlayson, and then goals from Frances Angel, Sophie Bajent, Grace Gillard, Malika Gill, Sam Rowland, and Hayley West. And again, Sophie Bajent's goal is on the hashtag Twitter. It's a nice one. She wins the ball halfway into the half of Barking, gets the tackle, runs into the box, takes on about 3 players, and then sticks it in the back of the net. It's an absolute delightful goal. So very, very good stuff there for them. The Gloucestershire County Cup will, of course, be taking place as well. It's looking like quite an interesting one there. Bristol City will be playing Bristol Rovers, but it is Bristol City's youth that will be playing that, the academy youth that are playing there in the semi-finals. And I've absolutely mucked this up because my writing is so poor. I haven't actually written down who it is who's in the semi-final against Forest Green Rovers. Perhaps you know, Stu?
No, sorry.
Yes. It's Lewis, I think. They're going to be up against... Oh, no, it's not. It's Cheltenham. That's it. Cheltenham. They lost in the final to AEK. There we go. I know I'd get there in the end. Against AEK Bocco last year. They won it in 2022 against Almondsbury. And the semis of COVID. Honestly, Cheltenham have got a huge run in this one. They really, really do. Jess Leach scored 3. Emily Owen scored 3. Hannah Butcher scored. And A. Trinchi, Isabel Nunes, and potentially 2 own goals as well as they made it through. So the Gloucestershire County Cup looking very interesting there. Forest Green Rovers, though, did win it in 22-23. So that could be quite a good semi-final. And from this as well, the Sussex County Cup, which we will touch on briefly with your Southwest one as well. That's where Lewis were in. They're into the final. They're going to be playing, and it's such a shame that Gareth's gone, because I know he'll have a lot to say about this. Brighton Academy, who have won it, get ready for this, 19 times. It's absolutely crazy when you take a look at it. Lewis have won it 3 times, but that's nothing compared to Brighton. They won it in 2023. But Lewis won it, like I say, 3 times. 2018 was the last time they won it. They won their last game, though, right at death. Kayla Ginger scoring in the 89th minute and Maddie Brandt scoring in the 92nd minute, beating Saltdean, who were last year's winners. So, I mean, toss a coin for that one. It could be Brighton Academy, but if Lewis are feeling particularly up for it, could be them. What do you reckon, Stu? You know those sides slightly better. Lewis or Brighton and Hove Albion Academy, which side would you think would come out victorious in that?
I've got to put my money on Brighton, but it could be a closer run thing than it has been in previous years. Lewis on a little bit of a resurgence after a little bit of a slow start to the season, but that's only to be expected with the amount of changes that went on within the club. But I think it'll be a good game. I think if I can get the kids to bed nice and early, I might be able to whiz down the A27 and watch it. I think it's interesting you said they won it 19 times, because I think the last time I went to a final was probably about 4 years ago, and it was between Crawley Wasps and Chichester City. Rest in peace, both of those teams now, who are both playing under different banners. But I think, knowing the quality that they do have in Brighton's academy and how well drilled they'll be, I think they'll be my favourites. But hopefully I'm wrong, because I love Lewis.
Yeah, it would be a good one. And Cheltenham, Forest Green in the semi-final there. Would you have a side there that you think would be the winners? Cheltenham did beat Forest Green in 2016.
Yeah, Cheltenham. There's a disparity between the tiers that they both compete in, and Cheltenham will be too strong for them.
There you go.
But wouldn't it be great if we get some plucky underdog stories? But sadly, we don't get too many of them in women's football.
No, very true. Not always. Right, we are nearing the end. 2 more leagues to look at. The next one, of course, is Division 1 South East, where again, it's all kicking off again here. Honestly, these teams chopping and changing around in the top 3 like you wouldn't believe. Real Bedford, top of the table once again with games in hand over every side below them that matters in the title race. So massive for them to have made it back to the top. Norwich City have had 2 wins on the trot as well, and are right on the coattails of Bedford, who just cannot make a mistake. Chatham Town drew 1 and lost 1. They've had the opportunities to still be top, but their results in the last couple of weeks have not been what they would have required, and as a result, it has dropped them down. London Bees, again with a bit of a late surge. It's probably too little too late there. And Actonians, QPR and Sudbury all switching spaces. But again, it comes down to the relegation. When you take a little look at where we are, London Seawood and Ashford Town. I mean, Ashford, you could argue, have got the slightly better situation of having 8 games left to play rather than just 5. But you're not seeing them get up to 28 points, if we're being brutally honest. And we're not really expecting London Seawood, with their 15 possible points, to make it to 19 points either. So very much as it was in the Southern Premier, if Chesham can get themselves just 4 more points, then Seawood and Ashford are, well, certainly Seawood, probably Ashford as well, are down. It's not looking good, as I say, for either of those sides. But we are certainly hoping that it will become a little bit more of a spectacle, I think, than it currently is. County Cup-wise in the South East, there's a few bits happening. So in the Kent County Cup, Chatham will be facing Dartford, who were last year's winners, winning 3-2 against Aylesford. Chatham made it through with a 7-0 win, which you can't really argue with. Millie Rayner just getting the 4. That's all she wanted in that one. Lottie Sharp, Ellie Perkins and Lucy Jones also on the score sheet. So, yeah, the Kent County Cup, that's a tongue twister in itself, is looking really quite exciting there as they move into that final, which will be on the 1st of May, quite a late one compared to some finals. The Bedfordshire County Cup final will also be taking place soon, and this is a doozy for me, because the 2 sides that I know incredibly well. Real Bedford have made it into the County Cup final. They beat Biggleswade of Tier 6, 8-0, with Layla O'Brien scoring 3, Amber Gaylor, Millie Hayes, Amy McLean and Nicola Puddick all on the score sheet as well. But they will be facing Luton, who are second at the moment in Tier 5 in the Eastern region. They won the Bedfordshire County Cup in 22-23. But having beaten AFC Dunstable, again, another Tier 6 side there, they beat them 5-0. So this final, I think, is going to be quite a big one, and certainly one that I personally am going to be looking out for massively. Real Bedford have had a superb season. As you can see, they are favourites to make it into Tier 3, having won the Eastern region last season. So very, very intriguing, I think, this one, to see where these sides go. And that will certainly be something that we keep our eye on as we move into the end. And then my final bit on the County Cups in the South East It's just to let you know, unsurprisingly, that Ashford Town are now out of the Capital Women's Cup, having lost to the Spurs Academy 2-1. Now, it's interesting because the other teams that are left in, they've got Haringey Borough, again, in the Eastern region. They beat Sutton. Nice little story. I say nice little story, an interesting little story going in there, because Haringey actually played London Seaward in the previous round. They beat them, London Seaward. They won the match by an outfield player, Beatrice Rogers, who comes on the show, in goal. She saved and scored a penalty. So they won the game, but apparently due to some administrative errors from the referee, they weren't able to have the result. They had to play it again the whole 90 minutes. And obviously Haringey won that quite convincingly and went on to beat Sutton. So they will be into the semi-final as well. But you've also got Fulham, who lost to the Arsenal Academy, in Enfield, will still have to play Dulwich Hamlet. But you've got the Arsenal Academy, the Spurs Academy there in the Capital Cup. Stu, we've had these sorts of conversations about the County Cup with John and with Gareth. I'll be very intrigued to hear your views on County Cups like this having academy sides in it in the way that they do, because it does feel like, certainly in the likes of the Capital Cup, we've just mentioned Brighton winning it 19 times as well in Sussex. It's a very, very tricky thing to try and beat these sides. Is it a bad thing to have them, do you think, in County Cups?
No, I like it. I like it, actually. I do. I think it's good. I draw on my own experience as based in Hampshire. We've had Portsmouth that were always predominantly the most successful side within our Hampshire Cup. However, as Southampton started to relaunch their women's team and climb up the league, there were some fantastic battles, as you can imagine, the rival between these two clubs. We've obviously got AFC Bournemouth heavily investing, while Southampton's under-23s are a really talented side. And it's good and it's competitive. I think there is a place for PGAs in the county cups, but not the league. But again, that's a whole other episode. So I like it. I think it does add a little bit of a prestige in the competition that could be seen to be a bit wet, to be honest. It adds a little bit of sparkle. I think it's good. My one big criticism, I don't know how it works in the other football associations, but funnily enough, in Hampshire, all of the favourites seem to miss each other. It's like they've seeded the teams, but they haven't told anyone. So, funnily enough, the draw has been made for the next round, and the two highest ranked clubs have drawn each other in Moneyfields and AFC Bournemouth, and Bournemouth have avoided Saints. And I would have put my mortgage and your mortgages on that coming in, because I know full well that Hampshire FA, they will always want Bournemouth and Saints in the final, because those are two slightly more recognised names, and there's a perception that they will bring more fans and more prestige to their final, to which they profit on with ticket sales. So yeah, I think it's good, but I'd like to see a little bit of transparency, especially in Hampshire. I don't know how it works in your areas.
No, very interesting. Hard to tell. Go on, John. I was about to answer his question, but I'd also like you to add on with that just your thoughts about the county cups in general, because the thing that I've noticed just through looking through just a few of these is that it seems to run in cycles. So again, running in my own area, Stevenage have made it to the county cup final something like every year since about 2016, bar last year. So you seem to get the same teams appearing in the latter stages time and time again, which isn't terribly different, say the FA Cup and things like that. We do tend to see that. But do you think that that's a good thing for football, the fact that carries on and people know where the level is? I mean, what's your general thoughts on the county cups?
Just on what Stuart asked, I think I think it's the opposite. Not the opposite as if it's intentional, but up in the Worcester area, you've got Kidderminster and Worcester, who are by far the two biggest teams, and they've ended up playing each other in the semi-final. So obviously that would have been a fantastic final. And last year, it also happened. So you had Worcester first team against Worcester reserves in the final. So, and now they're forcing a tier 4 Worcester against a tier 5 Kidderminster Harriers. So it's almost as if it was all scripted, it's almost as if they're preparing again for another Worcester final, like Worcester against Worcester in the final of the Worcestershire County Cup. So of course it's like a 33% or 50% chance. So I'm not too sure if it is or not at this late stage. But of course, it would have made a better final to have your two best teams in the final. As for the county cups, I think we've discussed it a few times regarding how you can improve it, because the amount of goals that are scored and conceded, especially at the earlier stages, it's quite embarrassing. And we've mentioned on social media, when do you stop tweeting how many goals have gone in? When it gets to 10-0, do you kind of just stop another goal? Because it gets quite bad, doesn't it? So I do think that there needs to be a look at it. I got no problem with County Cup. I got no problem with academy teams coming into County Cups. It's the League Cups I don't particularly agree with, or like the Plate or the new league format in a couple of years' time, because I think that's a different story. But I don't mind a County Cup because they're within the county. So, and much like Stuart says, you've still got a bit of a rivalry there, whether it be an A team or a B team. But yeah, I do think that there needs a bit of work in regards to the same teams popping up. Maybe that is one of the reasons why they have introduced academy teams, just to inject some more competition. So, for example, in the Birmingham area, you've got you've got Wolves and Albion, which for many years have been the best two teams in that area. But now all of a sudden you've got Birmingham and Aston Villa Academy. So all of a sudden you've got 4 teams. And obviously Stourbridge and Calcer and Mugby Borough have got better over the years as well. But I do think it makes it stronger. And I'd rather see it in the County Cup as opposed to anywhere else.
Tend to agree. Stu, anything else you want to add?
Without opening up a huge can of worms, I have had long conversations with Nick from the Wolves and Inns podcast about the state of county cups, and it does vary depending on your area. Like you touched on the London's equivalent, and that is a really hotly contested competition with some really high quality teams. And the most astute of you would have realised and said, hang on a minute, why are Bournemouth playing in the Hampshire Cup? Because they're not in Bournemouth. So I wonder maybe if the whole county cup situation needs to be looked at. For example, what you said there, John, that screams to me that you need to be merging 2 counties to try and increase a little bit of competition, and maybe looking at it that could be suitable elsewhere. Like for example, if you could have a Hampshire, Sussex, maybe throwing in Bournemouth because they'll want to come in as they always will. That's a really competitive cup competition, and maybe that is the answer for some of it, to actually look and say, actually, if we need to increase the competitiveness, let's merge counties a little bit. Yeah,
just on that one, I made a mistake. I mentioned Calcer's name there because it's so in my head that Calcer's part of the Black Country, which is Birmingham based. To get from Stourbridge to Wolverhampton, you have to go past Calcer, and Calcer's part of they're part of Stafford, who actually won the County Cup last year. So you are right, how it's all laid out, I'm not too sure. Maybe it's postcode based, I don't know, but yeah, there's definitely scope for a bit of a change, isn't there?
Definitely. But I just want, well, we've got the Southeast graphic on there. Again, that league's not changing very much. I think the only real debate is going to be who finishes second and third between Norwich and Chatham, who finishes fourth and fifth between Bees and Actonians, and the same with QPR and Sudbury. But the reason I wanted to jump in on it is, full disclosure, I'm also involved with Moneyfields, who we'll come on to a little bit later. We played Real Bedford in the National League Cup, and I would say that they are the best footballing team that we've faced all season. And we've played Bournemouth twice and beaten them at least once. Bournemouth are very strong, but the football they play is it's not play it out from the back. They are not of the school of Pep, for what I'm to say. But Real Bedford, Charlie Bill is doing a fantastic job. They're playing football the right way. I think they'll be winning that division, and I think they'll be looking at a team like Exeter and thinking, actually, you know what, we can do what they've done. We can come up and make an impact at the top of the league, and they're one to watch. And if I'm correct, I believe that they are actually looking to be merging with another local team. I've got Bedford Town in my head, but I could be making that up completely, so please excuse me if I am. But I want to jump in and just say kudos to Charlie Bill and Real Bedford team. They're doing things the right way.
Yeah, they are
ruffling a few feathers on the way, but they're doing things on the pitch the right way, and off the pitch they're investing. When you look at established teams like QPR and Norwich, there's no way in the world that Real Bedford should be outspending them necessarily, but they are. They're committed, and they'll get their rewards.
No, they absolutely have. There's clearly a lot of investment going on there with Peter McCormack, who is, of course, the chairman, and they've got international investors as well. So all manner of money going in there. I did see there was a bit that really made me giggle watching this Bedford merger going through. So I don't think all of the Bedford Town fans are too happy. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to Bedford, but the real Bedford ground is here, and the Bedford, you can literally see the Bedford Town one. It's right next door. It's totally next door. So if they did merge, they would have that entire area of Bedford Town and Real Bedford, which you can imagine if they were trying to build it into the giants of Bedfordshire, it would absolutely give them a lot of space. They'd have a training ground, for example, right there. The common sense idea I can absolutely see. But the Bedford Town lot aren't so happy about it because obviously they feel like they've got all of the history. And it did make me giggle when one of their fans put in there, well, if we're going to merge, you need to make sure that you take a little bit from each club. So why don't we take the Bedford from Real Bedford and the Town from Bedford Town and call it Bedford Town? I love the logic. I think it's great. So it'd probably be called Real Bedford Town, you would imagine. But yeah, that would be quite a thing. Stu, we're going to throw it over to the Division 1 Southwest now. You mentioned, obviously, that you're involved with Moneyfields, but we've been dying to get you on the show because I have to be the Southern rep, and I think I do an okay job, but much like yourself, it's very difficult to have much knowledge, and the same with Gaza, of places where you don't visit very often. And although I know the vast majority of these places, it's very tricky to sort of really know the in-depth and the history and all of those sorts of things. So obviously you mentioned Bournemouth and yourselves there doing as well as you have done. Can you just run us through what's been happening in this league? Give us a little bit more of an insight into what's happening in Division 1 Southwest, with any shocks, any surprises, anything that's the same as usual, and just sort of run us through what's happening there and what you envisage happening in the rest of the season.
Okay, I'll try and be as concise as I can because it goes against me normally because I like to waffle, as anyone that's listened to me knows. So, as you can see, AFC Bournemouth top, and they should finish top. And I would say that they might drop points against ourselves soon when we play them at their place. I think it's March the 3rd. We are the only hope, I would say, of taking in. No, I'm going to take that back. Actually, I'm going to take that back. I was going to say that we're probably the only hope of taking any points off them because, as I say, we've beaten them already in the League Cup determining round, and we were 1-0 up until the 89th minute in the following league game at our place. And they went ahead and scored 2 goals in added time to win. But so we've obviously pushed them quite far. However, I believe it was Keynsham Town that they hosted at the Vitality Stadium last year for a little bit of a big occasion to celebrate. And Keynsham were the party poopers and managed to get a 1-1 draw. So I'm probably being unfair, massively biased. So I apologise to all 10 other clubs in the league. Anyone can get a result against anyone, but the resources that Bournemouth do have available to them is so superior from anyone else, I would probably say, in the whole of the fourth tier, and probably would be the envy of many clubs within the third tier, maybe even the second tier as well, to be honest. They do have access to Premier League money, and they are using it. Bournemouth men are showing a lot of faith in their women's team. They are investing in it, and they are also investing in their players. But ultimately, they are paying their players, and that's one of the things that I love to see the most. These players, especially those that are at a particularly good level, they need that payment in order to be able to focus on training. The more you train, there's obviously a correlation, the better you get. But they're going to win that league, and we'll be happy to see the back of them in the nicest possible way, because I think once that's gone, you've got a really competitive league, and especially if you look at the likelihood of MK Dons are coming down, but I imagine they'll get put in the southeast. So we'll get someone bumped over into the southwest along with Plymouth, and that'd be really good. Be good competitive. If Cheltenham comes down, I imagine they'll be placed in division. So we'd from a Moneyfields perspective, we'd love to have Cheltenham and Plymouth in our division, because they're two recognised names across the board. But we've obviously got Swindon, Worthing, Bristol that are also really competitive at the moment and doing really well. Bristol is their first season in the division after promotion, and they've been doing really well. We as in Moneyfields are actually playing Bristol Rovers the weekend, and that game has been bumped up to the Memorial Ground where the men's play. So that should be a really good occasion. We came away 4-1 winners at our place, but I would say that it's a whole new ball game, completely clean slate, and it's going to be a really good competitive game. We hope to have the edge because we want to try and keep pace with Bournemouth. Since we earned promotion, we've finished third in the last two seasons, but comfortably we've been a good 10-15 points behind the top two. So we want to try and put that right and see if we can kind of stay as close to Bournemouth as possible. But I say after we dropped points against Worthing last week, I think we're probably gonna fall away that little bit sooner. But it's a good division. It's a good division. It's a good fun division. It's a good nice division with some real hard working teams. The result that probably pleased me the most at the weekend was at the bottom, Southampton women getting their, I'll say technically, first points on the board, because you'll notice there was a little asterisk that the draw that they picked up against Bournemouth Sports, they were deducted that point. But it looked like all hope was lost for them, unable to score, a really young side, but they've been able to turn it around in recent weeks with their form improving, and they've given themselves every chance, because in their last 4 games, they are playing Portishead, Bournemouth Sports, Abingdon United and Bridgewater United. So they probably couldn't have asked for a better run in there. So they are within their own, they've got their future within their own destiny. Again, the story of what's gone on behind the scenes is probably one for, you could dedicate a whole episode to it, because for those that aren't aware, Southampton women, they're nothing to do with Saints. They are much older than Saints, and only Arsenal have won more FA Cups than Southampton women. I think Southampton women won 9 of the first 10, or it'll be 8 of the first 9, I'm not sure. Historically, they've always been a top 3 team within this division, but as we've seen across many other clubs across women's football, you lose a manager, then you lose certain players, and then things go wrong. There was a management change last season, and a lot of the hard work was unravelled. I don't know where blame lies with that, and that's not my place to say, but it's been a little bit of a rebuild, to be honest, and I'd like to see them stay up. I think they are at main stage of the National League, so it would be really sad to see them drop out, but I think they're starting to turn things around, and Bournemouth Sports at the weekend is probably going to be an absolute definition of a 6-pointer.
Well, like you say, that is massive that they've got those 4 games to come. They look very, very tasty indeed. Just going to run through a couple of your county cups that are going on. You mentioned the Hampshire one. Obviously, you beat Portchester 3-1. Sholing women are still through, and the Southampton Academy. The Bournemouth and Basildon match, I think, is still to be played according to full time when I was looking at it. Is that, or is there a bit of a walkover going on? What's happening there? Because you mentioned there's been a draw, so you've obviously got more information than I could find.
Yes, so there has been a draw. Sholing have been drawn against Southampton under 23s, and Moneyfields we have been drawn against AFC Bournemouth or Basildon. However, I will say that knowing that Basildon called off the game 3 hours before kickoff would suggest to me that they were unable to field a side, or for whatever reason they didn't field a side. And I think it's just a case of Hampshire FA sitting down to have a conversation to confirm that they'll be forfeiting that match.
Okay, lovely. The two other county cups that are going on, Newport Pagnell will be taking on Maidenhead, which I get might be a little bit further east than perhaps you are, but both of them very, very interestingly. Newport Pagnell beat Chesham, Maidenhead beat Reading, which is obviously the Reading that have dropped out of the Championship, but both sides are out in the second round last year. Do you know much of Newport Pagnell? Do you see Maidenhead winning that final against them, or?
I don't know too much. I would have probably gone with Maidenhead, but then you've told me that the results that they've just had there and beating Chesham, so that's a really good result. But Maidenhead are another good side. They are well managed. They look to play football the right way. They've got a very young team, so I would potentially put them slight favourites. We've sent a player on loan, Libby Doyle, who's a fullback who's come from the Reading Academy, who's picked up the player of the match at the weekend. So full credit to Libby. Yeah, I'd lean towards Maidenhead purely because I don't know too much about Newport Pagnell, but given their results, I could end up looking very wrong.
And the last one is the Wiltshire County Cup final. Swindon made it in against Purton FC. Swindon won it in 2024 and 2022. I'm going to assume that we all believe Swindon are going to be winning that in 2025 as well.
With Annabelle Colston up front, I would say yes. She's an absolute goal machine. And yeah, I wouldn't see any other result, to be honest.
Perfect. Well, there we go then. That has covered the entirety of the WNL and about 700 different counties, I think, in the county cups that we've managed to have a little look at, which has given us a slightly longer show than usual. But I would argue probably one of the most well watched as well. So superb to have had you in. Thank you, Gareth, who has obviously disappeared to do other things. Thank you, John, as ever. And Stu, lovely to see you again as well. Obviously, the owner and author of Since 71. Tell us a bit more about what's going on there. We're going to see any more from Since 71?
Short answer is yes. After having my second child and also being involved with Moneyfields, there was something had to kind of a little bit with my time, but that is starting to change. We are having more regular features. We had recent interviews with the most recent one with Lindsay Harkin from Nottingham Forest, the captain. It's a really fun one to do. We've got one coming up this weekend with Aaron Smith, who's the manager of. Oh, sorry, I tell you, he was the manager of Southampton. Left the club, but seeing all the everything that was going on, has come back as secretary and brought in James Lally, formerly of Swindon, as manager. So we've got a really interesting chat with him about the changes that have gone on within the club, hopefully add some context to seeing them at the foot of the table. But yeah, hopefully we're going to have a lot more content up. Hopefully I'll be a little bit more regular face on here once I can get the little ones to sleep a little bit earlier. I'll be on from the beginning of the show. But one thing I will add is that if there are anyone watching that thinks, oh, I've got a little story I want to tell, then we're always open to contributors. There's never any pressure about regularity. It's just I started Since 71 because I wanted to share stories in women's football at every single level, and we always welcome content from anyone. Like we've been fortunate to have yourselves involved in the past, and yeah, we always welcome it. There's a lot of great stories that deserve to be shared. We're fortunate enough to have amassed a respectable audience, and we want it to grow.
Excellent stuff. Well, there we go. And that is the end of Lower League Lingo episode number 24. I can't quite believe we made it to 24. John, can you?
Not at all, but it's great to share a podcast with Stuart again, mate. So good to see you, and hope to see you again in the near future.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I've already opened a few can of worms for certain topics that we can maybe do a little bit of a deep dive on.
Indeed, and we look forward to it. Thank you very much. Cheers for joining us live. Thank you for Julian Barker for the first live comments, and we look forward to seeing some more. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.